Hey guys, here today showing you how to replace the front brake pads and rotors on a 2016 model year, but this is actually 2015 when it was built. So, but this is a 2016 Hyundai Elantra, or Hyundai Elantra, I want to call it that. This is the 5th generation. It was made from 2010 through 2015. So this would be about the last of the production models made for this car. Pretty straightforward, don't really need anything special in order to do this job. You will need a pretty big Phillips screwdriver in order to take the screws off that are holding the rotor on. Usually you can get away with just using a regular screwdriver and hopefully they'll unscrew. Sometimes though these screws do get stuck. That'd probably be the only major problem you would have, is getting those screws off, especially if you live somewhere where it snows and there's salt on the road and everything's rusted. But you can just use a regular screwdriver and you should be able to get it off. If not, you can get this thing that's called like an impact driver. It just holds a Phillips bit on the end, and what you do is you take a hammer and you hit the end of it, and it kind of jars the screw loose. So before you do anything else, that's what I like to do first to make sure I won't have any issues with this. I'll just stick this in here. I'll whack it one good time and that'll loosen the screw up, but as you see, it'll just come right out. There's 2 screws holding this on. If for some reason you, I already loosened this one up earlier. If for some reason there are no screws there, don't worry about it if you don't have screws that hold it on, because when you put the wheel back on, it's gonna hold the rotor on anyway. So don't lose your mind about it if there are no screws there. In fact, you probably lucked out if there's no screws there. So you don't have to have an impact driver. You can do the same thing with a regular screwdriver, just kind of tapping the end of it while you're trying to turn the screw, and that'll help you get it off. Alternatively, if you have an impact driver, like an electric impact drill, that might be able to jar them loose. And the worst case scenario, if you do happen to strip them out, just get a drill bit that's about as big as a thread, maybe like a 3/16 drill bit or so, and just drill the screw out, and then that's fine. You don't have to worry about putting a screw back in there if you do happen to strip it out. So I'm working on the passenger side of the car, so obviously I got it jacked up, put it on jack stands. What I like to do is to go inside and turn the key on and turn the wheel all the way to the right, so that way I can have good access to the caliper. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, now that you got the wheel turned all the way to the right, the next thing we'll need to do is to loosen up these 2 here screws to remove the caliper. They are 14mm screws, so just grab yourself a ratchet, 14mm, and loosen and remove those both. If for some reason the other one right here is turning on the inside, I believe it's a 17mm, you can just grab that and remove it that way. But these usually come out with no problem. Okay, after you get those out, just go on ahead and pull the caliper off, like so. Now is when you want to get your brake compression tool, whatever you like to use. There's ratcheting ones. I use this one right here. It just spins and compresses the caliper back in. So what you want to do now is to pull out one of these old brake pads and just slide it out of its spot, just like this. Stick it right back into the caliper here, just like so, like you can see. And then you grab your tool and you stick it right inside here like this. I'll show you here in a minute. Let me set it up. So it looks something like this. You see the old pad is in there, because you don't want to take the tool and press straight onto the piston, you'll damage it. So then you just pretty much just turn this back in all the way until the piston is completely recessed back into the caliper. Okay, once you got that piston pushed back in, you go on ahead and see over here where you had the bolts that screwed in. These are just like little rubber boots. what you can do is just pull these metal pins out. They'll just slide straight out. Wipe them off, wipe all the old grease off, and then you want to get yourself some new grease, just multi-purpose bearing grease. It's red. Well, it doesn't have to be red, it'll be whatever color. Get some grease, then just re-grease the pins. Just, you know, put a good amount on them, and then you go ahead and stick them back in there until they're fully seated. That way you have nice new grease on both the pins. So we'll go ahead and do that to both these guys. Stick that guy back in there and he's good to go. So go on ahead and pull off the other pad. If you didn't pull off the other pad, do make note, sometimes pads are side specific. As you see, this one, when I pulled it out, had the wear indicator on the top in the inside, whereas the pad on the outside had nothing on it at all. So do take note of that when you do go to put the new pads in. So now that that's it, now that the pads are out, you can go on ahead and focus on taking this caliper bracket off. I believe it is a 17 millimeter. Yep, 17 millimeter socket. There's 2 bolts here, one here and one here on the top. So go ahead and loosen and remove both of those, and then the caliper bracket will come right off. Just like so, just set it down. Don't forget the lock washer. Okay, now that you have the caliper bracket off, you can go on ahead and remove the rotor. Fortunately, this one just fell off. If for some reason yours gets stuck on and you're trying to get it off, grab a hammer. Don't hit it from the back of the rotor. Hit the very face of the rotor where, you know, let me show you on the new rotor. Hit the face of the rotor here in these spots, a few good whacks, and it'll come right off, I promise. So go on ahead and remove the old rotor, and you go on ahead and slide your new rotor into place. Make sure you pay attention to where the holes are at, where the screws are going to go set in, so you can screw it on correctly. Just like so, and then you can grab the little retaining screws and work those back into place. That way your rotor will stay on and won't be wobbly. Just like so. Put both the screws in. And since I have this impact, I'm just going to give it a little tap to make sure it stays in. I'm not tapping it super hard. Just a little bit to make sure it stays. And then from here you can go ahead and grab your caliper bracket back again. Use this and attach the 17 millimeter bolts that held it into place. This job is super fast, super simple. Most brakes for all cars are really simple. So I advise you, I encourage you to try them. So go ahead and tighten both these 17 millimeters back up, just as tight as you can get them. There's probably a torque spec, but I don't know it offhand, so I just tighten them, you know, as good as I can get them, and that's perfect. There are lock washers on here. Okay, so we got that on. Now what we need, I did forget to mention to spray your brake rotor with brake cleaner first before you put anything on. So we'll go on ahead and get our pads out now. And as I told you before, one of the new pads is going to have this wear indicator guy that's going to go on the inside on the top. So we'll just slide that into place like so. And then the new pad with nothing on it will go on the outside and slide right into place like that. Put my old pads And FYI, I never use new brake hardware that comes in the packages because they're not made by the manufacturer. And yeah, they might fit okay, but sometimes they fit loose and they rattle and they make noise. So I'm just not a fan of them. The only way I would replace brake hardware, the metal tabs, is if one was obviously like rusted out or damaged, then I would replace it. If not, I'd honestly just leave them alone on every car I do, and I've not had any issues over the past 16, 17 years. So I'm a firm believer in just leaving them how they are, because these fit perfect from the factory and I leave them just like that. So after you got these on, go on ahead and grab your caliper and just simply slide it back over and reattach the two 14mm bolts that went on top here and the one on the bottom. Just like so. And you go ahead and tighten those two guys up. Just as tight as you can get them. Don't go crazy on it. Then you go inside, pump the brake pedal a few times until it gets firm, and then you can go on ahead and move on to the other side of the car. I'm not going to show you how to do the other side of the car, obviously, but yeah, it's pretty much, that's it. Straightforward. You know that you can, if you're working real fast, you can honestly get this job done in about 15-20 minutes. And now that you know how to do it, you know, it's super simple. So save yourself some money and do it yourself. If you guys just have basic hand tools, in this case you just need a 17mm socket, a 14mm socket, a Phillips head screwdriver, a hammer, jack stands, and a 21mm socket to take the lug nuts off the wheel. If you can get a hold of those tools, which are very easy, then you can just tackle this job on your own. So yeah, if you have any questions, just ask me in the comment section below. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button on your way out. All right guys, thank you.